Welcome to Copy Chief Radio. Today's show is a freelancer's journey episode where successful freelancers share the tactical moves that catapulted their careers through the phases of the freelancer's journey. To see all 7 phases, where you are now, and how to move forward, head over to copychief.com/phases. To check out all the Copy Chief Radio episode types, go to copychief.com/CCR. Colin, thanks for being here, buddy. I appreciate it.
I am so happy to be here.
It's exciting. We've known each other a long time. We're privileged to move in some pretty awesome circles together.
Yeah, we've known each other since 2010, Action Seminar, the first one.
Wow, the very first one. Yeah, that was John Carlton and Stan Dahl's first live event, essentially, big live event. And I think that's also where I met Robert Gibson the first time.
Oh my God, yes.
Remember we did the copy court?
Yes. Lori was on there. Joe Polish was there.
David Deutsch, yeah. David Garfinkel was probably there. Yeah, we did a thing called Copy Court. And it was I think Stan's idea. And he's like, yeah, well, it'll just be a fun way to do critiques. And it was too much permission for us to just rip things apart and like hold a court case whether this copy was horrible or not. You know, it's just, and I remember back then still being so excited to be on stage again after years of stand-up and being away from stand-up and not realizing that crowds that come to a conference are not expecting sarcasm, deep sarcasm and stinging one-liners. And so when I make fun of somebody's, sweater vest or something, they chase me down the hall and go, "What was that supposed to mean?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? You're just a guy in the crowd. It's supposed to be funny."
Yeah.
It was a big wake-up call, but amazing time. And so you and I both mentored by, friends with, trusted by John Carlton to teach his stuff. You've been, I would say, the premier leader, educator, coach in simple writing system for the last few years, along with Lori.
Yep.
The most consistent coach. And that's certainly saying a lot. You've had an amazing career and made some really cool decisions in where I am trying to reach as many people as possible. And sort of like, I think of myself as the Dave Grohl of copywriting. It's like, I can rock, but I can also bridge you to other rocking. And I want you to feel empowered to rock. You are more like private guru who takes very few people at a time under their wing and develops them, and they go on to be like CEOs of companies and things of that nature. Yeah.
Yeah. So that has been my modus operandi for the last 12 years. Taught to me by Robert, being under the radar and being discreet and making the right connections as opposed to shotgunning the whole thing and being everywhere, so to speak.
Right.
But I'm trying to change that. I'm going to be more public. It's the next phase of my career.
Stepping out. I like it.
Yeah.
And by the way, osmosis.dev is where you can get on Colin's list. And I dig what you're doing there. It's very specific. Like you say in the simple, explanation of it, you read books and destroy them, meaning you highlight dog ear, write notes in the margins. You really consume information on human behavior, marketing, self-growth. And you share the best highlights, your biggest takeaways from those books with this list. Very cool.
Yeah. It's pretty hard to come up with new content every week. So this is a good system for me to do that. And it's an excuse to push through books that I would otherwise give up on. Because a lot of these books are kind of textbooky and difficult to read. But it's also fascinating once you break it down to what they're talking about.
So it's accountability for you and a great share for the subscribers.
Yeah.
You got a favorite book from last year?
Probably Streetlights and Shadows. There's just so many things we think we need to do in order to make decisions that are completely wrong and actually steer us in the wrong path. Like when it comes to complex decision making, you're often making decisions in a lot of uncertainty. You don't have all the factors. You don't have all the facts. And you can't use your typical pros or cons list. You can't wait for the right feedback. You kind of have to just feel your way. And he talks about how the pros do it. One of the stories in there is actually Sully, which was portrayed by Tom Hanks in that movie. both his engines went out, and then he had to figure out how am I going to land this plane, and he had to make all these micro decisions, and finally he landed the plane in the Hudson, which was kind of crazy.
Very crazy. Yeah.
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah, I loved it. And then to be sort of like have to defend his decisions.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Miraculously saving lives.
Yeah.
It's like now you're in front of the review board going,
yeah.
Why don't you just go back to the airport? Kind of what I was trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Osmosis.dev, everybody, and it'll be in the show notes. So let's take a walk down memory lane. Where does it kind of begin for you? Are you a writer first? Looking back, you say like your childhood, more writer or more entrepreneur? What was the first bit of inspiration?
It was a bit of both. I wasn't expecting a question about my childhood. All right, so let's go to the entrepreneur thing. So the entrepreneur thing, ever since grade 1, I was selling shit. So like I would make little origami ninja stars and like whatever. And I actually sold them from my desk. And my teacher was actually quite encouraging of that. So that was there already. But for the writing thing, I've always wanted to be a writer. So like from kindergarten onwards, I actually wrote a few stories that I got in trouble for because they were too violent. I grew up in the 80s. This is when the whole political correctness thing was starting to come in, and teachers were just trying to get you. They were not too cool on, like I wrote a war story because I was watching this Chinese epic war story drama. And I wrote a story about like armies fighting each other. And my mom was brought in to talk about it, which was kind of weird, but writing stories. Yeah.
Interesting. So is that the first time you remember sort of causing a stir with your writing or having anybody like really pay attention to it?
I didn't think of it that way, but yes, probably. I think I feed off of that. I think that's why I'm in direct response. I do need a reaction. I do need the audience to give me feedback.
Yeah, it's always so interesting when I think any writer I ask can usually think for a second and remember the first time they wrote something and people reacted. And it was like, whoa, it's different than getting up and being funny in a living room, or because it's such an intimate act to write something straight from your private brain and then have people, outwardly in the physical world, like wanting to talk to you about it or causing some reaction or outcome, like you said.
Yeah.
It is pretty addicting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
My English teacher in high school read a lot of my essays aloud to the class. And I'm just remembering this now. And that again fed into that, attention starved thing that most creatives have. They want the attention. They want the fame.
Yeah, exactly. And some indication that we're doing something right on some level, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember when I was, between lives, as I think of it, after stand-up, before I discovered copywriting, I was taking every college course I could on journalism because it was only writing I understood that people got paid for aside of being a novelist, which I really wasn't a fiction writer. I remember teachers were intimidating, right? There were these like people at surprise winning journalists. So the beginning of class, we had an assignment we had turned in the week before, and the teacher says, professor says, hey, do you mind if I call out your piece?
Yeah.
Or he said, do you mind if I read your piece? And I go, are you going to trash it? He goes, yes or no? And I'm like, yeah. And he read it, and the whole class, and he didn't say it was mine, and the whole class applauded.
Wow.
And it was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I have no education. I'm just off the street and I'm writing by instinct. And I'll never forget that moment. And then, of course, you remember even more the dig. And so we were walking out of class that night, and a guy who took himself very seriously said to me, he goes, nice work, Mr. Adjective. And I was like, oh. I'm like, what does that mean, Mr. Adjective? He's like, a lot of adjectives, man. So, I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, there you go. Just like the world, the peers ready to keep you grounded at all times.
Absolutely.
But great point about just needing that. That's why I always say, like if people are really hesitant to show their work or receive feedback, that's a high wall to climb as a writer, especially in direct response. You kind of got to crave that and take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I think that is an indicator of whether you will or will not succeed as a copywriter. You are putting your stuff out there. And one of the core reasons I chose direct response over any other form of career is there's a quantitative result. you get click-through rates or opt-in rates or actual conversions and amount of sales. I don't think I would have survived as any other form of writer where you don't get that direct feedback.
Yeah. I have a friend who's just written her sixth fiction book of fiction, and follows a very specific format, how to launch these and how often. Man, the delayed reaction. Now that she's written six, she gets it. But yeah, I'm with you, man. It's like, hello.
Yeah.
Is anybody out there? First job, first way to make money. Did you go right into this, or were you stuck in the sort of traditional world of money earning before this?
Oh, yeah, I did everything. I mean, I grew up in a lower class family. So I did McDonald's, I did door-to-door canvassing, I did chapters, which is the equivalent of Barnes and Nobles down in America. But my job right before this was eBay. We opened up a contact center here in 2003. It was my first quote unquote real job. It was paying more than minimum wage. It was paying double the minimum wage. It was a CSR, customer support agent. Moved my way up into a supervisor role. And then in my last year there, I was a project manager where I actually managed 6 writers in San Jose, which was kind of funny.
That is. So you working for a company who was selling on eBay or eBay itself?
eBay itself. So I actually got to go down to San Jose to hang out with the whole headquarters. It was kind of cool. Yeah. This was before eBay right at the eBay's peak, I would say.
Interesting. And so at the time, are you thinking, oh man, I'm on the fast track, this is great? Or are you still a little twitchy about doing something on your own?
So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2001. And I think that was the book that changed the trajectory of my life. Up until that point, I had not a single ounce of practical thinking in my head. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to play the guitar, write songs, and I read a lot of literature and fiction. But I didn't even have a credit card. I had no idea about the real world. And when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, that completely made me realize I don't know anything about money or finance or economics or politics or anything. I was in this little bubble, I would say. And that book told me, hey, you get jobs to learn. And for me, eBay was kind of me learning about management and leadership. And that's where I got to play the corporate game and kind of move my way up, which was why I did it. But I also knew within a year into eBay, I was there for 6 years, that this was going to be my last job. I made that commitment to myself. And I got laid off in 2009. They closed down the entire center. And that was my excuse to leave and start the whole freelancing thing. I had a 7 months runway because I had saved up vacation time, paid time leave, severance package, a 1 month sabbatical. And that was my do it or not moment, really.
Yeah. Interesting. And so how long on that 7-month runway does it take to discover what it'll be that'll start your first business?
So even before I left eBay, I was already dabbling in copywriting.
Okay.
So in 2007, so it was 2 years before I got laid off, I got the infamous letter from AWAI.
Yeah.
Promising me I could make 6 figures working from home or on the beach. I bought the course and then I just went down a rabbit hole. As eBay was shutting down, I spent my time reading John Carlton and Doberman Dan and Clayton Makepeace because we weren't really working at that point. Mm-hmm. They were ready to shut down the entire company or the contact center. So that gave me a lot of free time at work to read and study. And I was working on spec with a few clients. They were just starting out too. So I was doing work already. So I didn't go into it blind. I didn't go, I'm going to do copywriting now. It's more like I'm going to do copywriting full time now.
We have very similar stories. I was in a similar situation where I was able to stop the one job as I ramped up. I think it's helpful if you can do that and also have a bit of an income to replace.
Yeah.
If you have a healthy income. I meet people all the time who have a little bit of runway, but they're starting from scratch. And so it's a total mystery on what they should expect to make,
That's scary. I don't think I would have done that. Yeah, that 7 months runway was necessary. I don't think I could have done it at that point without some money in the bank. So my wife and I, we had a 2-year-old son at that point, and we were thinking about our second.
Yeah.
Looking back, like financially, it worked out, obviously. But socially, like family wise, it's still a rough time for my wife to think about because she did not marry an entrepreneur, right? She didn't marry someone who was going to take a risk like this. And that entire year that when I was trying to get this up and running, she was really annoyed and mad at me because I wasn't looking for a job.
That's what we equate with safety. And that's a funny thing. It's like, as hard as it is, sometimes we accept the pitfalls of entrepreneurialism, but our support team didn't always sign up for that.
Absolutely. But, if you look at the resiliency you build into a business like this, eventually it's way better than a job, because at the end of the day, if you think of projects as a job, you're really interviewing every 2 weeks or every month. That's what you're doing. You're just trying to create new jobs, and you turn into this machine in a way where it's like you're okay with not landing a job or landing a job or whatever. It becomes this neutral feeling every time you talk to a potential client.
Yeah, 100%. That's a really good way to think about it. So what was your mindset? Did you have to learn to stop thinking of it as an audition, or was that a goal?
For me, it was just, the mind shift was there already. Like I just started talking to people as trying to get a job. That's it. And it wasn't like a long-term job. It was just to get money out of them for one project at a time.
Ask any experienced freelancer and they'll tell you that getting started and landing those first few clients, it's the hardest part. If you're struggling to find consistent work, you want to build more confidence in your skills, or you're just starting out in your freelance journey, don't worry. That's exactly why I created Escape Velocity. It's my step-by-step coaching program for how to kickstart a freelance career, attract quality clients, and confidently deliver great work. Let me help you find and close good gigs so you can quickly launch and grow a successful and sustainable freelance writing business. Learn more at copychief.com/EV. copychief.com/EV. I'll see you there.
When did you start teaming up and growing with good clients?
That actually started fairly early on because I joined John Croton's mastermind and I met Ben Morris there of Crystallytics, and he put me on retainer right away. Like at the end of the day, your skills and your character matters. And some people are more adaptable to working in a quote unquote job retainer environment. And, now that I've hired and trained tons of copywriters myself, there are just certain people that you want to hire as employees as opposed to your diva freelancer. So for one of my clients right now, we talked about this at Copy Chief Live. I'm looking for people who could stick around, not people who are like all flash and like they may do really great on one project, but I don't need that. I need you full time and I need you to check in every day. So you kind of pick out those certain character traits that you're looking for.
What's the most difficult part of that to find? Is there one that stands out?
I think it's just talking to a lot of people and recognizing the traits that how they work. So, I'm very slow to hire. Like I'll put you on a free test and I'll put you on a paid test. I'm going to ask you to check in every day. And that usually develops a relationship. And if you're someone that checks in every day and we develop a bond and we talk every day, there's chemistry there, I kind of pick up on whether you'll be a good employee or not. And then there are people that just can't handle that. Like people who are pure freelancers and they're like, why do I want to check in every day? Or it's so much pressure for them that and it's such a silly thing to say, like checking in every day is a huge pressure, but for some people it is.
Right.
Like that routine of that process. Now I have to report to a boss. I think that's another thing that some people don't like. And that's why they became freelancers.
Right. Yeah. It symbolizes to them the enemy they're running from.
Yeah.
At least conceptually. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Somebody said to me once, it's like, if you look at society and how many people are want to be freelancers, like 7%, like they're truly independent.
Yeah.
And then we're looking for the 7% of the 7% who
Yeah.
are, willing to partner with one. I think that may be changing a little bit. I've seen such a trend of people going more on full-time or retainer scenarios who were fiercely independent before pandemic. And I don't know how much of that has to do with it, or it just feels like there's been a shift in the mindset of how companies operate overall to me.
I think the benefits you get from freelancing are inside a typical corporate environment now, which is working from home, no commute, no stupid meetings. I think that is what bothered me the most. All the meetings I had to be in that I didn't need to be in. Yeah. And I'm there because I'm a part of the show of force, or because it's a all manager meeting, it's all hands meeting, or whatever, or just have weekly check-ins with your team. And it's like, well, there's not really any updates. Why should we still kill an hour doing this? And the remote thing, that's really important for a lot of people. It's just that flexibility. Coming into an office for 8 hours a day, which ends up being 10 to 11 because of the commute, that's not very helpful either.
No, and the side of books on audiobooks, the commute, it's starting to feel so antiquated, and people, I get why people who can afford to are just refusing to do it again.
Yeah.
And so innovations will happen quickly. All right, back to your story. So I want to sort of jump down into when you talked about your wife rightly being nervous about all this. At what point do you start to feel, okay, this is working. I got this. I'm no longer scared that this could, fall apart.
Some part of me still does, even 13 years later. No, that's a joke. It's not true. I think by 2010, so like within 6-7 months, I already was finding clients, and I knew how to find clients consistently. And the real test of it, and this is a great lesson for everyone. In 2015, I goofed off a lot. I hit a certain income plateau, and I was like, is this all there is to it? I'm not really doing anything that's feeding my soul, your typical creative drama. And I did a lot of like fiction writing and studying fiction, and I just goofed off all of 2015. But once things got really dire and I was like, whoa, shit, I need to make money now, I hit up my network, and within 1 or 2 weeks, I got a ton of jobs. And I think that is what I was referring to earlier, is that resiliency that you can build as a freelancer. Mm-hmm. Or just a good person who knows how to network and connect with people and build that social network. It's way more secure than a job.
Yeah, for sure. Right. I think of it as like the strength of a network. When the shit hits the fan, who do you think of? And how many connections are there from that person? That's a true, literal meaning of a network. But you can't have a network if you're not the kind of person who they think of as well when they go through that list. And so it really is a two-way street. And it is something, I don't know, it can't be manufactured. You got to kind of have that character. We've all seen the guy at the conference whose goal is to put his business card in every single hand. And you're like, oh, well, how quickly can I throw this away? Interesting. Yeah. So that's a really good point. I love that. I may title that episode, but safer than a real job. It's a great
It is, especially if you're not constantly networking. So like, I think once you get to the executive level, again, it's safer again, because you're constantly networking with other companies. Or if you're in a sales position where you're constantly talking to other vendors and suppliers or whatever. But if you're in a job where you don't talk to anyone outside of the company, then you should be scared. Right?
Yeah.
Because now you don't have a network outside of that company, and you can't like move. There's no easy way to move.
Yeah. Love that. That's really, really good. I never thought of it that way before. It's really interesting. What are the things or the moments, now that you're succeeding, you joked about that, but obviously, I'm sure you got steady income and you're feeling like, you're looking at opportunities. You're having that to vet opportunities. Like, so what gets your interest? What makes you sit up and go, okay, I'm listening?
I think at this moment in my career, I am looking to build more things that I can own and have equity in. To me right now, a lot of my freelancing work is to fund that. I don't know if I should be saying that publicly. If clients are listening, they might go, ooh, I don't know about that. But yeah, I turned 40 earlier this year. I'm turning 41 next month. And when I turned 40, I was like, yeah, I know I really want to be doing this in 10 years. I really would not like to be still freelancing at 50. So, I mean, the things I'm looking at is how can the projects I work on either be synchronous with what I'm trying to build?
Meaning, like, would you categorize, okay, I'm still freelancing, but I'm going to learn a lot about a industry or a niche that I can see myself building in as something that syncs up?
That's one way of thinking about it. Another way is something that I've always been doing my entire career, which is how can I meet more people that could be of use later?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is, whether you're freelancing or being an entrepreneur or whatever, that is my mindset. Like, how can I meet more people that may be useful later? And whether they be vendors, suppliers, other copywriters, product managers, whatever. It's not being mercenary or Machiavellian. If you go into it with the intent of, I'm just curious about people and I want to learn more about.
I was going to say, it sounds mildly sociopathic to talk about it openly like that, but obviously not the case. Like you said, being useful in the future another way to say it would be someone I could imagine partnering with, or someone who I see as
hire
worthy of investing in. Yeah. And that really fits with your MO, like you said, is that you change people's lives. Like it's the high bar of entry, but you're looking for people to come in and spend potentially years with you who, again, if it's the right fit for all the reasons, I would imagine you've directly changed people's lives, that certainly the direction of their lives professionally.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a two-way street, right? Like there's people that the lives I've changed, and there's people who have changed my life. And it's one thing I quickly learned in the freelancing game is that it's a very inefficient market. The people hiring you don't know how to hire people, and the people that you hire, they don't know what they're doing. And it's not like a Match.com thing where it's like, we're going to find you the perfect fit all the time.
Right.
And sometimes you're punching above your weight. Sometimes you get a job that's under whatever. And it's just constantly, there's this mishmash, and you just find different people, and some people lead you to different directions.
Yeah, it's awesome. What are the moments where it just feels like a victory? You mentioned that goofing off for 2015, but that was maybe more of like a creative crisis. Like, what kind of things you get to do now with your family that you're like, I can't believe we get to do this?
So with the family, I mean, I lived in Vancouver. It is one of the most expensive cities in the world in terms of real estate. So that is taken care of. Pre-pandemic, we were going on 2-week vacations every year to a European city or Asia, wherever. I get to nap a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, when we're talking about copywriting or any creative endeavor, you really can only work 3 to 4 hours a day. The rest is like networking, calls, meetings, whatever. Like it's really hard to put your creative brain to work more than that. And I don't have to do meetings that I don't want to, really. I think that's one of the biggest things. Yeah.
And you get to look for opportunities and have a sense of what your future would look like. And at least, how many people get to say, this is where I want to and don't want to be even in 10 years. Like most people just are scratching and clawing day to day, man.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. And the pandemic really showed us how the majority of the population lives, and it really sucks. And I don't know if you went through it, but I know I did. There was like a bit of a guilt factor where it's like, I'm fine and everybody else isn't. And this whole remote work thing, I've been doing it for 12 years. Like, I don't know why you guys are like, it's different for them. It's new for them. And if you're invested in stocks, like your portfolio did really well during the pandemic. And again, it just really shows that there is I don't want to get political here, but there is a wealth inequality problem right now.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully if some positive can come from that, maybe that guilt is just greater awareness and internal call to action to actually find ways that are effective to help, not just write checks in reaction to something. But, I have seen, does seem like charity evolved as much as even, some technologies and things through after pandemic, because people saw real need for the first time in a lot of cases.
Exactly.
People in, minivans that they're paying $400 a month on in a food line.
Yeah.
Like, it just shows how fragile it all is, you know?
It is. Yeah.
So, Colin, didn't mean to end on a bummer, but it's it's an ongoing story and full of great lessons. Let me close with this, because you, like you said, you hire slow. It was great to have you at Copy Chief Live and have you run a roundtable and let people ask you about how you grow these relationships. What's one thing you would say to somebody who, imagine maybe they've applied and really wanted to work with you and weren't quite there yet? You know, what would you tell them to work on most?
Oh, geez. The craft is something that you just have to be good at. Constantly studying sales letters or winning ones, breaking them down. I mean, that's typical advice, but getting real experience is probably the more important one. And I think this is something that most people don't hear about, is everything we talked about this call is about connecting and hustling and networking. And that is the one skill that you need to have in order to survive as a freelancer in this world. And what I want to say about that, I don't think I'm a great copywriter. I think I'm above average and I deliver results, but I'm not writing winner after winner. And those people exist, obviously, and you see them at certain companies. But what I have that I know is my strength that has kept me going for the period of time is my ability to connect and talk and still deliver above average goods. And so if there's one thing I want to share with everyone, it's like, learn how to connect and talk to people. I am not an extrovert. I'm very much an introvert. And in fact, I am very much antisocial. I can't deal with small talk. At every Christmas party with family and friends, I am that guy in the corner on his phone. I don't want to talk to you about the weather. I don't care about your fantasy football league. And if you have a hobby that I'm not interested in, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about biking. I don't want to hear about your hikes. I'm not a good person when it comes to like small talk and making casual friends. That's all it is. But if you want to talk movies and board games and nerdy things like on TV, I'm happy to do that. But you learn to turn that off when it's for business. So a funny thing I learned recently on the Myers-Briggs scale, I'm an INFJ, but if you flip the I to an E, that's kind of like your shadow self. I've realized I am an ENFJ when I'm at conferences. I know how to turn it on, be charming, be that kind of empathetic listener, and listen to your small talk. But fortunately, there's like a purpose to it. Again, this is going to make me sound like a sociopath, but like I am listening with purpose and with an end in mind. And that's why I can't deal with small talk at a party, is because I know there's no end in mind.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Some people would consider that intolerant, but I think it's polite to be honest and just not pretend sometimes too. That has to be respected. Does it drive your wife crazy? Is she more?
Oh yeah. Like when we started dating, or even like earlier in our marriage, it was like she hated the fact that she had to explain who I was to her friends. Like afterwards, like what's wrong with Colin? Like like why is he such a dick, or why is he being arrogant? Like does he not like me? It's like no, it's not that I don't like or dislike you. It's just you don't interest me.
Yeah. I really enjoy having friends that people always think that around. Like my friend Steve's like that. Everybody's like, God, I thought that guy hated me. I'm like, no, he just doesn't pretend. Almost like a Larry David kind of thing. Like, it's not that bold about telling you what he thinks, or, you know, but it's just like doesn't need you to feel okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what most good people do in this world. It's like they try to make you feel good.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I admire that. I completely do. Like my wife is like that. She will make sure you feel okay around her. I'm not. I'm terrible.
That may be my backup title for this episode. I'm terrible. The life and times of Colin Chung.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you, man, for doing this. Let's follow up in less than 10 years and hear about the new adventures, man.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it, buddy. Talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. Copychief.com/CCR.